You ever wonder what makes a character just stick with you long after you finish the story? It's not magic, it's design. And it's a skill that I promise you anyone can learn with the right process. So today, we're going to break that exact process down. So how do you do it? What's the secret sauce for making a character that feels real, that feels alive, a character you can recognize from a mile away and who just leaves a huge impression? Well, let's dive in and find out. And right off the bat, the answer might surprise you. See the most powerful character designs? They don't start with a cool drawing. Nope, they start with an idea. The real heavy lifting happens in your head, laying all that groundwork way before a pen ever touches paper. So here's our game plan. We've got a 5-step roadmap. We're going to start with the foundations of identity, then move on to creating the character blueprint. After that, we'll talk about going from inspiration to authenticity. Then decode the hidden language of design. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with finalizing and polishing. All right, section 1. And honestly, this is the most important part, figuring out your character's identity. Before you even think about what they look like, you have to know who they are. Think of this as your pre-flight checklist. You've got to ask the big questions. Who is this person really? Where did they come from? Are they a total goofball or are they serious and stoic? What's their overall vibe, Nailing these down gives you a North Star for every single design choice you make from here on out. And here's a pro tip. Please, whatever you do, do not get attached to your first idea. The absolute best designs are found. They're not forced. You've got to let yourself play, experiment, and make tons of different versions. Seriously, sometimes that perfect character you've been chasing finally shows up on sketch number 10 or 20. It's all part of the process. Okay, once you've got that solid foundation of who your character is, we can get into the next phase. It's time to create the official plan, the blueprint, the character sheet. Now, it's super important to get this. A character sheet is not just a pretty picture. It's a technical document. It's like the ultimate guide that makes sure your character looks exactly the same no matter who's drawing them or from what angle. And for big projects like comics, animation, or games, this is absolutely non-negotiable. So what makes a great sheath? Well, you've got to have a few things. You start with a basic neutral pose. That's your baseline. Then you need turnarounds. We're talking front, back, and side views, minimum. Make sure to detail any key props or accessories they always have. Slap on some clear color references, we call them flats. And then, the fun part. Explore some expressions and dynamic poses to really show off their personality. Okay, so we have our blueprint, but where do we get those little details that make a character feel, real? Well, that's all about finding the right inspiration and really grounding your design in authenticity. And this brings us to the classic tug of war for every designer: style versus function. On one side, you're thinking, what looks awesome? What fits the vibe of this world? But on the other, you have to be practical. Can they actually do their job in that outfit? Does that cape get caught in everything? The sweet spot, the real magic, is where those two things meet in the middle. And this is where a little bit of research can take your design to a whole new level. Don't just draw a jacket. Go look up real-world military jackets. Don't just draw bullets. Look up what different kinds of ammunition actually look like. These small, authentic details are what make your fictional world feel like a place you could actually visit. Okay, now for the really cool part. This is where we get into the psychology of it all, because every choice you make, from the shapes you use to the colors you pick, it's all sending a message to your audience, whether they consciously know it or not. This is something called shape language, and it is a ridiculously powerful tool. In general, circles and soft curves feel friendly, safe, approachable. Squares and rectangles give off a feeling of stability, of reliability. And triangles? Triangles feel dynamic, sharp, and a lot of the time they signal danger. I mean, think about it. What is a knife if not a triangle? And the best part is, you can mix these shapes to create a more complex personality. Right here, you can see the sharp triangular bullets just scream danger, but that's balanced by a solid, squarish torso that makes the character feel stable and dependable. The real key, though, is to always have one shape that dominates the design to set the main tone. The exact same idea applies to color. If you want to avoid a design that looks like a chaotic mess, a fantastic rule of thumb is the 60-30-10 rule. Basically, 60% of your design is your main dominant color. 30% is your secondary color. And then you have just 10% for a little pop of an accent color. It's a simple recipe for a balanced and professional-looking palette. And of course, your colors should be telling a story too. So for this character, the dominant black and green immediately gives you that commando feel, right? The secondary red adds that splash of danger and aggression. And that tiny 10% of gold, that little accent hints at something more, maybe a noble background or a bit of royalty. See? Every color has a job to do.
And that brings us to the final exam for any character design. If you really want to know if you've created something iconic, you have to run it through the silhouette test. The concept is pretty simple. A truly great design is so unique that you can recognize the character just from their outline, with all the inside detail and color completely blacked out.
And boom, you can see just how powerful this is right here. Even as just a solid black shape, you can still tell who this is. The pose, the unique shapes of their gear, it all comes together to make an interesting and instantly identifiable form. If your design can pass this test, you are golden. All right, we're on the home stretch. Now for the final step, adding that layer of polish that really makes your character ready for prime time. This is where you really get to flex your artistic muscles. You want to focus on clean, confident line art. You'll add some smart shading to give the character weight and depth, and then use some highlights to really draw the viewer's eye to the most important parts. This is also your chance to just mess around with different rendering styles and find what feels right. So, when you boil it all down, what's the big takeaway here? It's that a character is never ever just a cool drawing. It's a personality that's been given a physical form. Every single line, every shape, every color, it all has to serve the story of who that character is deep down. So there you have it, the complete blueprint from that first spark of an idea all the way to the final polished art. The only question left is, what character are you going to create first?